Hotep, peace and blessings. Welcome to another edition of ASHE. I'm your host, Queen Mother Imakhu Mut Shekamet of Sacred Shrine of Mut Ast and also AkeruRadio.com. Last week we started a series of conversations about various facets of African traditional religion and some of the customs that go along with it. I get asked questions all the time about the things that I wear, about including my jewelry, about some of the customs that I do, about my name, and I always take the time and explain to people because it's really important for us to be able to build a bridge by creating dialogue with one another so that we understand exactly why it is that we do what we do, why we believe what we believe. It's not so much about proselytizing or trying to convince somebody else to believe what you believe or do what you do, but again, it's just about building those bridges. I get asked by a lot of people also who are seeking out African traditional religions and living the culture, as we call it, young brothers and sisters or those who are seeking to come to a new level of consciousness, new level of awareness. So with that, I freely share information. Now, last week we talked about the raffia that you see up on the wall and how it is used for protection in the same way as a broom. It's from the broom tradition. We talked about how to create a sacred altar for your home. Well, we're going to talk about more aspects of the culture, but I also brought back some of the objects from last week so I could explain more about what they are. Now, in the shrine that I set up, we had all four directions that were represented. We had air. Last week I had a cone of incense to represent the air. This week I have a feather. You can also use a feather. Feathers, in representing air, air is the intellect. Air is about communication. It is swift moving energy, and we have it in the sacred East. And with air being a rapid transition and communication, that we recognize as also being the direction that the motherland sits in. So generally, when ritual starts, we are facing east. That is the first direction that we face because we're facing the motherland. Now, it was traditional for many enslaved Africans to ask that they be buried with their head facing south and their head facing west, feet facing east, because that put them in the direction of home, of the motherland. Some people still carry out those same traditions today. So we're mindful of where the motherland sits, the cradle of civilization, which is in the sacred East. Now, this candle represents fire. Fire is creativity, and it is also a form of swift-moving energy, but fire also represents the life force, the very energy that runs in our bodies. In the Kemetic tradition, which is my tradition, it's known as Ra or Re. It is depicted by the sun. Now, also just to clarify some things, it was believed that ancient Egyptians worshipped the sun. They didn't worship the sun. No. What they were doing was showing honor to the life force, to the life that runs in everything. It's believed that everything has energy. I mean, even this table, this drum, this book. And so it is honoring of all energy because it's the energy that connects us together. It binds us all. In the West, we have water. Now, last week I showed you how I was make good use of great bottles. This is a great bottle. This had cones of incense in it, but I've since emptied it and put water in it. And water represents emotions. It is said that in various African traditions that a person who is not connected fully to their emotions is somebody who you really can't fully put your trust in. In fact, speaking of water, in this book of Water and Spirit, which happens to be one of the books that I recommend for this week, Dr. Malidoma Somé, who I recently interviewed, it was a wonderful, wonderful interview, is talking about being of both worlds, about being of the culture of his people, but then also being westernized. And within that, prophetically was expected to come back bearing information about Western society so there could be a greater understanding of what was going on, but also the notion that he also was bringing an understanding to the West about African traditions, and with that carries a message also to African Americans about claiming African traditions, honoring that we are here, we are in the West, but also that our roots are in the motherland. And many Africans or Africans in this country are doing that today, and there's a movement that is called the New African movement that is taking place. And so, but anyway, in this book he also mentions about being a water priest. I recently was initiated into the water priestess tradition of the Shona and Ndebele tradition, and it's the path of peace and also of great compassion, which again is the emotion. And but again, in the book he mentions about well, he goes into detail about how his grandfather, his beloved grandfather, who was the great healer of their tribe, he passes away. And the story in itself is dynamic. It's just, you find yourself trying to suspend your belief, because when you see metaphysically all the things that happen as a norm within their society but are actually possibilities. But anyway, the funeral was quite an elaborate affair. And the way that it started was with everyone weeping. People coming from neighboring villages because they knew of this great healer who had passed away, and the significance of everybody being able to get to a place of weeping, of mourning, of bringing forth tears. Even the great warriors, if they're having trouble summoning up the emotions that they needed to get to in order to grieve properly, then there are people around them who are helping them to bring up those feelings. And because they knew that in order to properly go through the grieving process, that they had to pull those emotions up and work through them. So that's where he says in their society, and in the origins of African society also, that being in tune with the emotion is key as far as the kind of character that you possess and your connectedness to everyone and everything. So the West again is water, and then we have the stone, which represents earth, which is north. Now, a lot of people lately are really keyed into the earth energy, because earth represents material possessions, it represents money, it represents all things that deal with security issues, housing, clothes, your bank account. And so there are a lot of folks who ritualize and they stay focused on that earth energy. But the earth also represents the root. I talk a lot about our chakras, or in our tradition we call them aritu. And the base arit is the earth arit, which is the foundation, which is the earth. All of our security lies within the root. And it is also about taking chances, appropriate risks, not going too far out on a limb, but knowing when it is appropriate to go out on a limb and when it's appropriate to just keep your behind home. So earth is very important to stay keyed into.